Twitch will have a panic attack and not be able to show it. So, oh, hi everyone. Also, we're live. So that's a thing. Yeah. Hello everyone. Um, we are doing this. My name is Lee. He, him vibes today, but she or they is fine. And today I have a very special guest. Why don't you introduce yourself? Okay, of course it does. Hang on. Hey, there we go. Good. It's working. We don't have anyone viewing yet, but do you want to introduce yourself or? Okay, I can't hear anything you're saying.
Well.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry, that was temporary. Or maybe you just weren't saying anything and I just panicked. That is a distinct possibility.
Oh, okay. We're live here.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Uh, um, but yeah, do you want to introduce yourself or do you want me to introduce you?
Well, the name I'm going by is Roxxifarius,
Cool.
which is the name of my first, of one of my first D&D characters, way back when Elf was a class along with the race. There were fighter magic users.
Very cool. All right. All right. So what we're gonna do is, do we have anyone? Well, we had someone, so that's good. Sometimes people, you do a stream and no one comes, and it's kind of disappointing, but it's okay. But we, although my viewer count is known to be off, because I've had people in the chat when I have actually like a lot of people in the chat tell me, "Oh no, it says here you have 10 viewers, and I'm seeing 8 on mine." So sometimes it gets weird. But what I was trying to do is, apparently this is not okay. Go away. What I was doing was I had the document open for Bashir because that's what we were gonna keep going over Bashir. And
Small
is it pronounced differently?
correction. It's not Bashir. That was the name of the doctor on Deep Space Nine.
Uh-huh.
Shar.
Bashar. Okay, I've been saying it wrong. Good to know. Bashar. Alright, sorry. Yeah, I'm probably because I was thinking as a more common pronunciation of that combination. Bashar. Okay. So we got the desertous region country. Which you've gone to great. There's a lot of stuff here. This is incredible amount of detail. But we got into magic, and I think I'm just going to read it out if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Most military strategists incorporate either divine or arcane magic into their plans, how it can help them, and how it can hinder them. Healing magic accelerates the body's natural healing by using magic to activate the internal mechanisms of the body to begin the healing process, as well as regenerating damaged organs and tissues so that natural healing works properly. Okay. Magical and non-magical healers and don't compete. Instead, they help each other. Trained in healing by non-magical healer, or many magical healers were trained in healing arts by non-magical healers, and magical healers took time and made the effort to learn magic. Makes sense. Those that learn the healing arts are typically trained by older and more experienced healers, some of which are self-taught. The same applies to herbalists, apothecaries, and non-magical healers. Forensic magic is fairly common, and is generally admissible in a court of law. Using magic in committing crimes generally means the sentence for found guilty is doubled, except, as noted before, for executions, because you can't really double an execution without committing necromancy. Fairly common in art, such as sand shapers, able to make beautiful sculptures and pictures with sand and special dyes. Also, artists use magic to enhance the experience of listening to music, or visual or auditory effects performance in plays. Non-magic using performers generally accept that magic makes the performance better, but still prefer to perform without magic. Interesting. It's probably like a whole, I would guess, thing. So what kind of instruments do they have?
For the most part, it is wind instruments and drums.
Drums and wind. Okay. So nothing stringed, or is it just not usual?
Strings also. Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Magic and tech. Compared to non-magical transportation, magical transportation is faster and more expensive but less safe. Magical weapons are better made than non-magical and more expensive. Ordinary objects, such as frying pans, code, have to be well made in order to be enchanted, and you can place different enchantments on them as well as being potentially used as weapons. Objects as these having enchantments are fairly commonplace among the rich people in Bashar. And it's the tech, so you don't really have as much tech because you have so much magic, which makes sense. I think it's Clark's axiom, where significantly understood magic is indistinguishable from technology, and significantly advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. The theory being that, while they're two separate forces, they achieve the same thing and find the same place in society. Okay, manners. Men goes through the door first. If two or more men, whoever has the social standing goes first. If all are equal, then the oldest goes first. Between two or more women, the one with the highest social standing goes first. And mothers before maidens, the oldest goes first. For introductions, men first before women. Men of social standing first, or oldest. Married before bachelors. Humans and non-humans, the oldest men in the same race as the host is introduced first, followed by any other men of the same race as the host, oldest to youngest, followed by the oldest of the other, or most senior of the others, followed by seniority by the same race, followed by the next race chosen by the one doing the introductions. The distinction between formal and informal good manners is that when in a formal situation, it is bad decorum to take offense to anything said or done by someone using good manners. Good manners are extremely important, Bashar. And then, death dealers, whose job it is to medicine. Sorry, I should probably read the section heading. I'm doing that thing where when I read, where I just I read all the words, but then I only say, like when I'm trying to read aloud, like something like this, where it's, because I know whoever I'm reading to can't read it, don't want to make it boring, so I'll just kind of condense it down to like the bullet point version.
Sure.
That makes sense. So, something like this where it's informational as opposed to, say, poetry or fictional. But that makes sense. Or narrative, rather. Men called death dealers, whose job it is to dispose of the dead, collect the dead bodies on carts, take them to the crematorium, burn the bodies, then bury the ashes out in the desert. Death dealers are considered unclean and usually inherit the job. The same families have been death dealers for generations. Women are allowed to help them and are considered about equal and socialized as slave if they do help the death dealers. So I would guess that women from those families would probably end up helping, just because once your whole family's done, your whole family's done. If that makes sense. So I'm guessing that's most of the women who help them are from those families. Healers use non-magical means to diagnose illness and ailments. Magical healing. Um, so you can't use magical healing until you've diagnosed it by non-magical means. Otherwise, non-magical healing is used, such as poultice, herbal remedies, and other natural whatever they have on hand. Most healers are not trying to profit from their healing skills, although a few of those with magical healing powers may hope to profit from using it. In most cases, if a sick or injured being is unable to pay the healer with money, most will accept a barter in exchange for healing. Healers treat people based entirely on practical experience. Due to laws against cutting up and examining bodies, would be considered practicing necromancy and therefore is forbidden. So you can't have the whole cadaver study. Healers trained by older and more experienced healers, except for those few that have risked being put to death by learning the ways which would be considered necromancy. Magical healing works by infusing the body with magical energy, which accelerates the natural healing process to a point where it seems to be instantaneous. Non-magical healing works by helping the body heal itself with agents to keep wounds clean and sterile, same as in our world. Birth control is a mixture during labor males after sex, so it's Plan B, basically, is the method of birth control of choice. It is about 75% effective, taken a day after childbirth. It is typically held by midwives and relatives of the newborn mother. Mortality rates are low unless newborn habits are part of different species, and in most cases, mother dies in childbirth. So mixed race kids tend to die young because of complications due to biology.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's not a lot of half elves, or are half elves the exception to this?
No. Well, the so-called typical races like a half elf or half orc are typically they survive, but it's the odd ones like half tiefling or
Half human, half halfling.
Or half demon or some such.
Well, I feel like a whole.
Probably won't survive.
That's probably a whole different thing, though. I mean, I would imagine in a world with magic, any say a half elf, half dwarf, or something like that, that would be difficult because biology isn't working. It's a high mortality rate for both mother and child. But half demon, I feel like, is a very different thing altogether. Just because it's a supernatural creature. Therefore, the rules of biology don't necessarily apply in the same way. I'm not sure. It's your world. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I feel like it would be slightly different.
Well, hasn't happened yet, so.
All right, fair enough. That's a lot of things in world, but it hasn't come up yet, so no one knows. That's just, often true. Okay, anyone could potentially be a healer if they have to have the wisdom to learn and remember what they learn or are taught by elder healers of their own experiences. Either through magic or herbal brews and poultices. Possible to resurrect a being through magic, but it's forbidden to practice that kind of magic, so necromancy. There's no time limit on how long they have been dead. So it's not like in most where you have like revivify or which is only a minute, and then you have raise dead, which is a few days, and then you have true resurrection, and then you have wish for like really ugly cases. But it is all resurrection the same, you said, in this magic system?
There are people that can heal with magic, but they don't do it like out in the open.
Right. But they can do raise dead with magic, but it doesn't matter. It's the same kind of magic, no matter how long they've been dead.
Um, well, for a resurrection or wish, or for the lesser magics, I think raised dead has a limit, but
True. So does revivify, which is another. Well, that's a
yeah.
fifth edition spell. It did, but yes, there are. Um, so I'm thinking fifth edition because. Sorry, let me take that off. Um, okay. Um, but yeah, so is that limit non-existent in this magic system? That distinction between like wish resurrection and raise dead, or
No, no, and well, in this part of the world, that's what they believe.
oh, so it might work, but no one in this part of the
Yeah,
world knows that magic. So ah, that actually is interesting. I didn't think of that. Um, all right. Interesting. Insanity. So you can treat mental illnesses by non-magical magical means. That is interesting. That is really interesting. Huh. No, I just being able to use magic to treat mental illness is kind of a. I never really thought about it, you know.
yeah,
Um, Especially because most mental illness is so ingrained in the way people are that there's a lot of debates about curing, especially stuff like, uh, well, anyway, because it's people are debating. Well, it's not really an illness as such. It's just the way people are, and yes, it negatively affects them in this society, but that's not because of inherent weakness or different things like that. But yeah, so mental, that's a whole can of worms um, that I've, am very much at the heart of in the debate. But I never thought of magical curing of mental illness. Huh. Sorry. Um, yeah, non magical means are just coping mechanisms, which is true. Any herbal, any, meds will just help you cope, which is the best you can hope for a lot of times. But that's if there's magical means, that changes the game entirely. And that, of course, is who gets diagnosed and who's allowed. That is wow. Okay. Uh, and that brings up the question, though: is do the magical cures work if you're not actually like? Does it just correct the brain chemistry? And if it doesn't work, can you go further? And if can you overcorrect, basically? Um,
um,
because is a history of using things like sedatives to, or diagnosing women who were outspoken against, politically with mental illnesses, and then, treatments with sedatives when they weren't really mentally ill, they were just non-socially complacent. But that got diagnosed as a mental illness because it was A, threatened the status quo, and B, was significantly different from the norm. And so you treat them things like diazepam or sedatives that, you know, stopped that. So is that a thing that people do? Can you magically overtreat? Um,
um,
or is it a
not,
different magic altogether that
not with,
treats?
not, not magic unless you're doing it to try to influence the person's thinking, to make them think a certain way or believe something that that's not true or that they wouldn't normally believe if they didn't have a mental illness.
So it basically only cures delusion. And if it's not actual delusion, then it doesn't work?
No. It works.
It's just something I thought of. I mean, that's complicated at best. I've just think about that a lot because something worth thinking about. Here we go. There are some diseases that only affect members of certain races, as well as diseases that affect different races in different ways. Can be cured by magical means, and some can be cured by herbal remedies. Oh, all can be cured by magical means, and some can be cured by herbal remedies as well. Okay. Making a binding oath, people usually swear to one or more gods, using their names in the wording to attract today's attention, trying to show sincerity in making the oath. When speaking a curse on someone or something, people usually say things that may sound humorous, depending on the god's will, but depending on the god's will, may come to pass. The most desired things in Bashar are water and material wealth. The more things, these things you have, the more affluent you are perceived as being, which makes sense. Polygamy is commonplace among middle and upper classes. Poor typically only have one spouse. Arranged marriages are also common, even among the poor, as it can lead to family moving upward in social class. Also fairly common place is a noble or other upper class person loudly or physically berating someone of the lower class for perceived offense. Ugh, yeah, sorry. It hits close to home. Some of the things that would shock a native Bashar are showing deference to a woman, uncovering herself in public, doing almost anything with your left hand, which is fair, being overly kind to someone of a lower social status. Someone that makes a binding oath is bound to the literal wording of that oath, regardless of any circumstances that may arise after taking the oath. The gods have been known to aid mortals in avoiding an oath made under false pretenses. The owner of an object, slave or servant, is being paid in coin or by barter in good faith. For object, slave, or servant. In this case, animals are legally considered to be objects, perhaps valuable, but still objects. Stolen objects, slaves or servants, are taken without proper owner's consent, or while the proper owner was under duress. Hang on. Sorry. Okay. I feel like there's something missing from that paragraph. Like, it's supposed to be something, and I'm just like, okay, that's not a sentence. Hang on. This paragraph is tricky. So, I think I kind of know what you mean, but I'm going to read it out, okay? An owner of an object, slave, or servant is being paid that paid in coin or by... Okay, I get it. Sorry. So, the owner of an object, slave, or servant is defined as being, is a being that paid in coin or by barter in good faith for said object, slave, or servant. Okay. For an object, slave, or servant, okay. In this case, animals are legally considered objects, perhaps valuable, but still are objects. Stolen objects, slaves, or servants, are taken without the owner's consent or while proper owner was under duress. Okay, that makes sense. That's property law. Okay, sorry. The sudden subject change threw me off. Um, okay.
It was just part of me trying trying to be as complete as possible.
I mean, it's not.
To avoid the situation of somebody saying, "Well, yeah, but is an animal an object, or is it property or what?"
No, I.
So I found it out. So
Yeah, no, that's very fair. I would suggest, like putting in terms of property law, just to make the reading a little easier to understand. Once you understand what I was like, it just clicks. It just, if that makes sense. No, it's a good thing to include. It's just framed a little weird and it's hard for me to understand, but I might also just be dumb. I don't know. Citizens of Bashar are guaranteed protection under law as long as they live in the country of Bashar and pay their taxes every year. Being convicted of a crime that results in being exiled removes all rights of citizenship as well as excuses you having to pay taxes. Female citizens of Bashar have fewer rights than male because they're considered to be lesser beings according to sacred religious texts. Alright, but they're still considered citizens. Women who live in Bashar are still considered citizens, they're just not equal to male citizens. Controversial subjects of discussion are rights for slave servants or women, pay raises for death dealers, raising taxes upper class, teaching magic to people that are uneducated. Makes sense. So, are there, you said there were indentured servants, right? That's a thing that goes on. Are there also slaves who are captured from other places and fully sold in completely? Or is it just different levels of indenturedness?
There is a slave trade. Yes.
Uh-huh.
That's done mostly by the Northlanders, which are pretty much Vikings.
Okay. So they sell captives to people of Bashar as slaves, and then they also have indentured servitude as well. And they're pretty much legally equal until the indenture is up. And then it's. The question then becomes, what about the children of slaves? Are they. Because not all legal systems keep the children of slaves as being legally slaves. So are the children of slaves legally slaves, or are they get some sort of indenture system going where they can earn their own freedom, or are they just children of the household who?
Slaves are typically considered slaves unless the owner of the parent decides that the child's going to have a better life.
So they're slaves unless.
Or they escape and make a better life for themselves.
Well, if they escape, that's a whole other legal conundrum, I would imagine. Because if escaped slaves are generally, well, at least in the history of the U.S., I don't know about escaped slaves generally weren't allowed to stay escaped legally. In fact, there was quite a bit of legal controversy over that. But generally, if you escaped as a slave, you were legally considered fugitive from the law. Now, if you're a child of a slave, I guess that's different because your status of a slave is more implied than actual. But unless, if you escape, if there's a legal protections from escaped slaves if they don't get recaptured within a certain amount of time. Or are you always fugitive?
Well, here in Bashar, basically the only right that the slave has is that the owner shouldn't kill them uh, unless they've been committed, unless they've been convicted of a crime.
Right, but since the owner can then act as judge, jury, and executioner on that, they can just accuse them and it has legal weight. Whether or not they actually did or whether or not the owner actually believes they did, it doesn't matter. So, escaped slaves are considered fugitives of the law then? And
Yeah,
and
by
then
most people, yes.
and then children of slaves who then would escape are also considered fugitives under that logic.
Yeah.
But being young has a better chance of being able to shake that and reinvent themselves and just live illegally, essentially. That makes sense, actually. Okay, marriage is not arranged by two families seems being more religious. Arranged marriages are mostly civil. A man has to ask a woman or the oldest living male relative of a woman he wishes to marry. The two men will decide on the dowry to be paid to the woman's family, followed by a formal request for permission to marry. Arranged marriages are typically started by a woman's family, usually to a male member of a high social class, and it is accepted. Woman's family pays a dowry for the bride. Arranged marriages can happen at any age for those involved, usually a very young age or shortly before the age coming of age in the family group. Makes sense, teenagers or young adults are the ones who get roped into arranged marriages. Younger if you're not picky on ethics. Standards of beauty and bashir vary depending on who you ask. For some, female beauty is the best to be of blue eyes, dark hair, and long fingers and nails. For others, they think a female with reddish orange eyes and hair and a reddish tint of skin is beautiful. For men, most agree on olive-colored skin, brown eyes, and long dark hair is attractive. Again, with some others, as with women, they prefer reddish orange eyes or hair along with a reddish tint to be considered attractive. Most people, Bashar, aspire to have lots of money, live in a big house full of material possessions. It's pretty much a very common in lots of the world. Outcast society are mostly nobles convicted of serious crimes and forced into exile, rather than maimed or put to death as lower class citizens would be. They are branded with an image of the sun on their foreheads, forced to wander around the desert from one oasis to the other. These outcasts are usually shown mercy by poor and middle class people while being cast off or threatened by the rich or powerful. Interesting. The arbiters of ethics in Bashar are highly respected or feared imams, religious leaders of various religions around Bashar. The Grand Imam is the leader of the imams and supposedly neutral in all matters, but may have other motives and desire that they carried out. Same with pretty much every religious leader ever. Grand Imam is chosen at the end of a week-long meeting of all the imams following the death of the previous Grand Imam. Makes sense. It's like the Pope or the Patriarch of Constantinople or the... there are a few others who are elected like that. So religious leaders are arbiters of ethics. Here's an interesting question. So these outcasts, convicted of some serious crime. So, if you're convicted and outcast, which means you no longer have the rights of a citizen, and which means you don't have to pay taxes, but you also don't have any legal protections. But you're not forced to leave the country if you are exiled?
Typically, no. You're just not allowed to own property. And you don't have to pay taxes, and people generally don't like you.
Huh.
The lower classes are most likely to be nicer to you, but they don't like you because they know that they would be killed for whatever crime you committed.
Fair. So then the question is, why? So you can't hold, but you can work and live and such. You just can't own anything, there's always weird legal finicky about any ownership of anything, and certainly not land or slaves or animals or anything like that. But the question then becomes, why wouldn't you leave the country? As an exile, why, like, do exiles tend to stay? Or wouldn't they be more inclined to leave the country?
Um, well, they may want to leave the country, but because they were exiled, they would have a problem finding somebody that's willing to take them out. Because the natives probably won't, so they'll have to go to a foreigner, and that's the best chance of getting out of the country.
Right. But, any securing travel and that sort of thing. But, what is Bashar border, land-wise? Because I feel like the easiest way to leave the country is just to travel over the border. I feel like also helping someone who's exiled leave the country would be a good thing, but
they could, and then depending on how knowledgeable the other country is about customs, they might not know that they were exiled.
True.
They could start a new life, and
yeah. Or certain other countries might not care that they're exiled. I would imagine there are certain countries that would have bad relationship with Bashar who would welcome anyone who was cast out by them. But yeah. All right. Climate and geography. Arid desert, bordered north and south by mountain ranges. So the east and west by oceans. So getting over the border means crossing the mountains. It's all natural barriers.
yeah,
Okay, that makes sense. There are a few big cities where all the water is located, and smaller settlements throughout the desert sands. Dragons, reptiles, and other heat-loving creatures live within the country. And then, of course, domesticated animals, I would imagine, were in a different legal category. Well, not legal category, but I imagine that a lot of the domesticated animals are ones that didn't have natural counterparts. Although, maybe. I don't know. Most fertile farmland is right around the cities where most water is. Oil and coffee, many uses: cooking lamps, lubricating gears, etc., etc. Some exotic fruits such as lime, not any. Oh, wow. It's the only place lime grows is. Okay. And the coconut lime rum. So when you say oil, do you mean petroleum based oil, or is it like palm oil or something grown? Or whale oil, I mean, if they have coasts.
it's most oils. There's the petroleum based, and there's
So they do have petroleum based oil reserves. I mean, I suppose it's plausible, just I wouldn't usually associate that with the tech level, but I mean, uh, um,
it's pretty vague because at the time I couldn't think of names for the exotic fruits, so I just kind of left it a bit vague
yeah,
about what's there.
yeah. The only thing with oil is it means it's not just like fruits are vague. Oil, though, it has very, very different meanings and uses depending on the type of oil. Like,
Yeah.
um, But yeah. Uh, the people who hate the Bashir the most are Northlanders. I'm guessing Northlanders are, you said, similar to Vikings in culture. Are they from north of the mountains?
Um, well, they're, they're from the country that's farthest to the north. Yeah, so they're called Northlanders.
Um, but not directly to the north.
Oh,
I'm just curious, because, you know, I've tried to invade the country and return back by the oppressive heat and sand dunes. Makes sense. That's a lot of invasions, actually, of places that people of Bashir believe the country was created by the gods to be a perfect paradise. No one is certain about when the land was created. Only the gods know and have not told anyone yet. Most of the people were born and raised in Bashir and know that there's more to the world, but have never seen it and don't care if they ever see it. Fair enough. Current Sultan is the 10th and is a distant relative of the first one. Also is technically a corpse puppet, but the first Sultan Dakar had managed to gather many of the people that had been mostly scattered around the oases throughout the sand dunes and raised the first city, Habib. Some people have left Habib, settling out in other places and started other cities and trading posts. Despite this, there are still large, open, unsettled areas in Bashar. Uh, okay. Um, First, so the ages, they were you said they measured time by this age and that age and this one. So the first one is the advancing centuries of treks. First recorded settlement of people starting to settle down and form cities, trading posts, and guard posts along the trade routes between growing cities and trading posts. First Sultan was the one that declared the event should be recorded rather than passed down orally. So Dakar was also one of the first that decided on naming conventions and other rules for people to follow in their daily lives. Then there's Aeon of Wayfarers. This is time when, during the reign of the second Sultan, Azad bin Dakar, the grandson of the first one, was the beginning of the unique kinds of magic that only a few of the natives can understand and use properly. Century of Expansion. The time of magic rules. This was the time of the fourth Sultan, Bashir ibn Bahan al-Harkun. So Bahan was, I'm guessing, the third Sultan, unless the naming conventions are significantly different than the Arabic naming conventions. A third cousin of the third Sultan, who decided that magic needed to be controlled, so he made the rules that are strictly enforced the current day, as well as some rules that have been forgotten. So that means that the third Sultan died without heir, presumably.
At least so, yes.
Alright. And then the fifth Sultan, son of the fourth Sultan. So that was a succession crisis that got solved. Ismail ibn Bahar ibn Bahan al-Hakun revered first attempts to have maps made showing trade routes, location of any oases of food, water, settlements, guard posts. There are still people who try to make reliable maps to the present day. So he was a well-known map maker. Interesting. And then, time of the sixth Sultan, second cousin to the fifth Sultan, who presumably also died without heir, Jibril ibn Hamin al-Hakim. So, is the line of succession, that is to say, is it direct if there are direct heirs, or is it looser than that?
Yeah. You know, if they have a son, then the oldest son will become the next sultan.
So a lot of
Or if not the oldest, then whichever son they have will, if they don't, then it goes to
cousins.
the sultan's brother or cousin.
Yeah, because it seems like a lot of sultans died without heirs. But um, also marks the first record of people from other lands going to Bashar. This is the first recorded time Basharians from the north, that barbarians from the Northlands tried invading the country. I'm guessing by sea. If they're not directly to the north, then I'm guessing it was an ocean invasion.
Yeah.
Okay. The seventh sultan, son of the sixth sultan, Jabal ibn al-Kim. The time that he had trouble from evil and dark cult, it was dedicated to a powerful devil. Interesting. And then the time of the magicians, the time of the eighth sultan, son of the seventh sultan, Karim ibn Jabal ibn Jibril al-Kim, made more rules about magic. Some of them are still used to the present day. So the cult that Jabal ibn Hakim had problems with,
Yes.
is it still, did he defeat them once and for all, or did he only mostly defeat them?
It's still active.
Good to know.
Actually, I believe that I tied it to the current sultan's two advisors.
That makes sense. It seemed like it might have been that kind of pull. Alright, so then the son of the eighth sultan, the wizardly Aeon, Marshan ibn Karim al-Hakim. During this time, magic users started to revolt against the many strict rules governing magic. To end the fighting, Sultan removed some of the rules. And then the time of the blue fire was given to the current sultan's reign. So what happened with the third sultan? See, every single sultan except the third had an age. I mean, maybe that's just me, but I'm curious about the third one. Was he just, the
third one, well,
was he a sickly son that died young with no heir?
yeah, basically.
That makes sense. Okay, so we have politics. Arcane magic is a profession and art. Divine magic, for the most part, don't consider the use of their day's magic as a profession or art, rather than seeing it as opposing their god's will on other creatures or objects. Arcane magic users, many of whom will charge for their magic or teaching magic to someone else, see it as spreading the will of magic. Like so many users of magic around the world, particularly users of arcane magic, many users of magic in Bashir believe magic is a sentient being on par with the gods, as well as being very chaotic and unpredictable. Those that can use magic are respected and feared, respected for their knowledge and feared for their potential powers, if not proven already, or feared if they have proven their powers to the public. Foreigners capable of using magic are usually mistrusted at first until they've shown that they respect the laws and customs of Bashar. By tradition, the Grand Imam is not to favor any one faith over the other. There's been talk that they've made decisions based on their own personal motivations, but it's usually only talked about in whispers when no religious figures are present. So the Grand Imam is chosen from among religious leaders. Yeah? But then has to give up his own service to his particular god to kind of be this non-partial authority figure. Okay. Those that are devout to God will try to push what they believe their God wants when dealing in politics, while other non-devout tend to push their own personal agenda if they get involved in politics at all. Rich are most involved in politics, followed by richer merchants trying to make deals to gain larger profit. Lesser merchants and poor don't often get involved in politics is they don't see it as a way to improve their lot in life. Adventurers, if they get into politics, and there have been a few that did, tend to push what they believe is best for everyone, rich, poor, male, and female. The gods of Bashar don't currently get their followers into any kind of direct conflict. They instead have all chosen to use their followers in a way that do not lead to any kind of large-scale wars. These are conflicts between different groups of followers. There are conflicts between different groups of followers, but there's not been any violence, only shouting matches and trading insults. A few instances of damage done to mosques, and sometimes people have had dirt thrown at them. Okay, so very little direct war, other than a few failed invasions of from other people. There's some heat-loving dragons that live in the mountains north and south, as well as a couple active volcanoes, which attract heat-loving creatures, some from other planes. There are various vermin, as well as larger, more intelligent complete list of creatures presiding in the country. Oh, wow. There is a very... Probably guessing from Monster Manual kind of... Alright. Okay. So there's that. So in terms of government system, because you said involved in politics, they have the absolute rule of the Sultan. Is there any institutions that, and then of course they have the magistrates. Are there any other civic institutions that exist?
Well, there are
Tax collectors.
there is a college, for learning stuff, but
And do the head of the college have any legal or political sway, or is it completely independent from the government in any way? Or are they appointed by the government but don't have any governmental power?
well, the only way that really to get more power is to marry into the Sultan's family.
Right.
Um, or work for a magistrate.
Right. So the magistrate do hire people to work for them. They do have civil servants, as it were.
Yeah.
Okay. But you can't take the title of magistrate fully unless you're married into the Sultan's family and or like are cousins of bloodline. If I'm understanding correctly. Or at least not the head magistrate of any city. Interesting. But the head of the college, is the college run by the government, the magistrate of any particular city, the Sultan? Did he appoint whoever runs the college, or is it just a completely separate institution?
The college is actually fairly independent.
So it wasn't founded by the government or anything?
No.
Interesting.
They just want to spread knowledge.
Then who founded the, or do you not know?
Just a few teachers.
Interesting. And it grew in power and influence as years went on, presumably.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Right, so the population is interesting. Religion. All the guards of... Oh, this is where we're getting to the good part. All of the gods of Bashar use magic. Priests, as well as members of other professions, such as druids, rangers, templars, and, are capable of miracles, usually by saying a prayer to a deity they're devoted to, as well as offering a physical item of some kind. Depending on what kind of miracle the priest is asking for, the physical item they offer along with the prayer is usually of monetary value relative to the miracle. The more powerful, higher monetary value of the physical item the deity has domain over magic does not have any temples or ordained priests. But there is a deity that has domain over magic.
Yes.
Who is willing to answer any prayer to them, regardless of whether they are male or female, is considered an outcast by many for accepting females or servants, even slaves, to get aid from him. And that's highly illegal as well, right? It's illegal. This is the deity of arcane magic, specifically, yes. As opposed to the clerics and the with the divine spells.
Yeah.
Okay. Priests, Templars, and other professions capable of smiting their enemies may at times be able to smite almost any infidel, meaning anyone that is not a member of their faith. In these cases, they pray for guidance, asking for the power to smite them, and in their deity chooses to give them power or not. There are basically two groups of priests. The adventuring priests, so clerics as part of adventuring parties, they've decided to spread the word and wisdom of the gods, and cloistered priests who tend to mosques and worshippers who come for aid and advice. Adventuring that survive long enough tend to rise in power and prestige faster than those who are cloistered, but it's cloistered priests that tend to rise in status within faiths they follow, as adventuring priests usually desire to be involved in the workings of faith and its politics. That is to say, the sort of people who become imams and then go for the grand imam spot and choose them and stuff like that. Is mostly cloistered priests because of reasons. At least that's what I'm getting. There's a rivalry between the gods for their worshippers. It really goes farther than open shouting matches in market squares. There have been some so-called splinter groups that have used violent methods in attempt to show power of their chosen faith over other faiths, as well as various cults that have sprung up over the years. Holidays are as well as other faiths throughout the world, have saints. It is these formerly mortal beings that have been granted powers beyond their mortal brethren that the faithful pray to, asking for aid of some kind, or simply giving thanks to what believed aid has been given. The saint is commonly prayed to. That is commonly prayed to is best known as one of that particular deity. What is known by the clergy is that there are other saints that their deity has used for, as well as some that have forgotten over time. Okay, so now we have the specific deities. Is it Kelma or Selma?
It's Selma.
Selma, the goddess that determines.
And she's one of two that wouldn't support same-sex marriages because it doesn't produce any children.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Makes sense. Goddess determines how long a priest's lifespan will be, as well as renewal and purification. Attracts more notice during the spring equinox and fall solstice, considered to be high holy days, as it marks the beginning and end of the dry seasons and wet seasons. These days also marks passage of time, another aspect of Selma. Is the oldest of the gods, and the others are considered younger. Some people believe that Selma created and gave life to the other gods. Some priests are seen as the least strict and most forgiving, as they believe that everything changes as time moves on through the universe, or the multiverse. The faithful of Selma hold the changing of seasons, as well as birthdays and anniversaries, which mark changes in the life, and the word of the faithful priests of Selma are thought by many to be the most pure in body and soul, which fits well with the fact there are no tales about, or rumors about any priest of Selma turning against the faith. Some priests are also believed to be the best at creating the most pure items, even if the item is plain and simple. Services usually start with the faithful taking a ceremonial bath, splashing water on themselves. Newcomers to faith are christened if enough water is available. If not, then a couple of drops on the forehead are substituted for the ceremony. Religious services start with honoring the oldest members of the congregation, followed by the next oldest, all the way down to the youngest member. This is followed by a member of the faithful chosen by the leading priest, telling the congregation about one of their life experiences to the best of their ability. After the tale is told, the leading priest will speak about any upcoming celebrations, those events that are planned to happen before the next regular service. In the case of death or one or more of the faithful, one of the common phrases used by the priest is, "They've done what they could to teach us about the lessons of life." Priests regularly encourage the faithful to pass down their experiences in life, be it by word of mouth or recorded in some way, for future generations. In doing this, the faithful help maintain a steady passage of time and events. The world was created by Selma. She had created the perfect world with help from the One. Everything lived and died in harmony. All the plants and animals were pure and simple until humanoid races came into the world. They did not accept the way of life and death that other creatures had accepted and went to change the world into the imperfect place that it is. Lady Selma looks like a middle-aged woman. Long dark hair with touch of gray at the temples, dressed in a plain tan dress. She often switches from being a young girl to an old woman in back to her usual middle-aged appearance. So here's a question. Do the gods appear fairly regularly to people?
Sorry, what?
Do the gods appear fairly regularly to people?
Not regularly, no.
Oh, okay, good. In which case, you said that images of the gods were forbidden, yes?
Right.
So then the reports of what the gods look like all word of mouth, stories, written descriptions?
Yeah.
Okay. The origin of life, according to the Iman of the faith, the word was created by Selma with help from the One. Selma decided how long everything would live and how it would die. The One took care of other details. Who is the One?
Okay. The One is kind of an overlord of the gods.
Uh-huh.
The One created the gods.
Created the gods, who then created everything else.
Yeah.
Okay. But no one worships the One directly.
The One did have a helper, and the helper decided that she wanted to change things, which which is in another book, but yeah.
Oh, it's further down? Yeah, sorry, I know I'm reading this in order, it doesn't give me the full picture. Former saint named Zernin, who did not like knowing when he would die, in defiance of Selma, Zerin learned all he could about the undead from god Tolman and became the first vampire, passing it on to his descendants. Interesting. Saint Basira, commonly referred to simply as Basira, is a being that followers someone's prayer to when they want something from Selma. Respected at all levels of society. First, she decides how long a being will be among the living, so people at all levels, at the very least, pay homage to Selma. If they don't do it regularly, people will pay homage to Selma after they've been what they believe was a life-threatening experience. Makes sense. Other deities that have similar portfolio, as well as the lawful deities in Bashar, are allies of Selma. If the Selma has any enemies, they don't live very long before they become a serious problem. So it's a public sect. And then a lot of people have respect for Church of Selma despite having lost at least one loved one due to Selma ending their life. Most of the government respect Selma, except for the two advisors of the Sultan, but they probably don't tell anyone that they hate the god Selma, I'm guessing, because that. The other gods respect Selma as they would their mother who birthed them. Followers of other faiths do not agree on the idea, but most of them do not openly challenge the priest of Selma for fear of being struck down dead. Interesting. A middle-aged woman named Alora, who came from the desert one day with a tale about having a vision of a woman with a knitting wheel, who told her that her time has not come, that she will spread the story of Selma. Interesting. Created about 1980 Selma, with the power of life and death over a living being. Oldest religion in Bashar, several hundred years old at least. Not changed since the deception. Have declared a holy war on necromancers and assassins, known as the Order of the Black Snake. Makes sense if assassins tend to not do the work of the deity of life. Small schism groups that have devoted themselves to fighting undead and forbidden magic use. Let's see. Priests of Selma prefer to wear plain, tan-colored robes along with shaved faces and shaved head, plain leather sandals. The Imam of Selma wears the same plain robes, but also wears a red sash representing the blood of life. Mosque thrown for al-Bashar. Pieces of wood supposedly from the first knitting wheel in the Grand Mosque. So here's a question. And it might be that people are just hypocrites, but if Laura was the first priestess of, or the first prophet, if you will, of Selma, are there not any female priests? Did she not encourage other women to?
There are faiths that have a priestess. They just can't become a high priestess because they're female.
Right, but they do allow women as religious.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. They want to learn everything that lives and dies at some point. Despite our best intentions, we all need to keep going despite everything that happens in our lives or to those we care about. And they believe that everyone should live their lives in constant understanding of mortality. And tell people not to be sad or angry over death of a loved one because they're deceased about everything they could to improve their lives around them. There was nothing that they could do in this life. So Iman tells the high priest doctrines of faith. The high priest tell the lower priests. Some of them are women. These priests tell faithful and try to spread the doctrine to any who will listen and perhaps become one of the faithful. All the major religions of Bashir are based in the city of Habib, where the imams of each religion act as advisors to the Grand Imam. Women get 2 drops of holy water, women get 1. If the water is low, moist dirt is used instead. It is considered good if the baby does not cry after it's born without being given any kind of incentive to do anything. The baby is cleaned and then given to his father for approval. If the father does not approve, the child is given to the nearest orphanage or mosque to be raised there. If the father does approve the child, then the child is given to a mother who has no choice in the matter of approving or disapproving newborns. Dang, that's harsh. Initiation rituals. The new ritual is first cleansed, either given a bath or a damp cloth. During this cleansing, the person is splashed with holy water. This is done in belief that it will reveal the person is possessed by an evil being, as person ordered to deceive priest and his assistants. After the bath, person is clothed in plain, simple clothing, followed by the priest asking the new initiate of the faith 2 questions. First question, what is death? And the answer is a doorway to the next life. The second question is, what is the most important in this life? The answer is to do everything I can to enrich the lives of every living thing I meet in this life, and if it is Selma's choice that they pass from this life, before I do, then I will do what I'm able to help them into the next life. Being is given 3 chances on 3 different days to answer the question properly. After giving their 3 chances, if they don't give the proper answer, they must wait until the following year to try again, if they so desire. Marriage is organized by the bride's family, who must get the approval of the groom's family on all matters related to the marriage ceremony. Priest merely presides over the final groom's family approved ceremony. Bride must memorize an oath to recite to the groom in front of the priest, as well as the family members and friends gather for the wedding. The groom's family makes up the oath for the bride. If they are not fond of her, the oath may be very long. The groom is expected to make up his own oath and recite to the bride. It can be as long as he wishes it to be. The groom recites his oath first to the bride. Any mistakes that he makes are usually forgiven or ignored. After the groom recites his oath, the bride is expected to recite her oath from memory without help from anyone. Any mistakes the bride made are expected to be acknowledged by the groom, who is supposed to have his bride stay over from the beginning. In most cases, the bride is given 3 chances to recite the oath without making any mistakes. After these attempts, in many cases, an elder member of the groom's family will stand and announce that the ceremony should come to an end now, followed by the groom agreeing with the elder and turning away from the bride. If the groom decides to end the ceremony, the priest will then wait for everyone to leave the mosque. Their duties would be finished until the next ceremony at that mosque. If the wedding ceremony goes well, after the bride and groom recite their vows, the priest is expected to bless the union in the name of and presence of Selma, followed by wedding parties, cheering the couple and everyone leaving the mosque. Here's a question. What if the groom happens to not agree? What if the groom refuses? Has that ever happened? And what is the result of that? Or is it so formalized that it just doesn't happen? Sorry, that's my writer's brain picking at the edges of the, what happens if the bride screws up the oath 3 times and the groom refuses to end the ceremony?
Well, then most likely the groom's family would be upset. But as far as the priest is concerned, the priest would be most likely willing to complete the ceremony.
All right, good to know. Priests to some of you of followers' death as a time to celebrate, not mourn, for they'd gone to meet their goddess, and to be with her for the rest of eternity. Priest of Selma will not raise or resurrect a being that has died unless the priest believes that the being will make a difference in the fight against a great evil. They stand by this regardless of who the being was while living or how much the priest has offered to bring him back from the dead. If the being was well known or a powerful person, the priest may request that there be a wake for people to celebrate the being's accomplishments while they were alive. Then there's coming of age. When a child or follower reaches 13, the priest will have a brief ceremony at the beginning of the day's regular prayer service at the mosque, where he will announce that the child is ready to assume duties of man in the house. The child is male. The child is ready to be married and work to help support the family if she is female. In the event the child comes of age on a holy day, the child will be told that they are a blessing from Selma and will certainly make the family and community proud to know of them while standing in front of the gatherers gathered to begin the festival and celebrate the holy day. This is one of the few occasions where both male and female children are told the same thing. For those that are expelled from the faith, they have a much higher chance of dying soon after being expelled from the faith. Their death may be while they're engaged in some act that may be embarrassing, shameful, or in some cases evil. Because, of course. Festival held when the wet or dry season begin or end, as well as festivals at the end of a year and the beginning of another year. Shrines to Selma in every settlement of notable size. A small number of followers have made claims that they made a journey out into the desert to an oasis where Selma supposedly came from. Probably the one where the Alora saw the spinning wheel, I'm guessing, yeah? That's the pilgrimage site? People found that people from lower levels, even as low as common street urchins, have an outlook on the world most in line with the goddess Selma. They will not only teach them the faith, and the newly recruited will also be taught the common skills that children would be taught by tutors. Priests of Selma advance in rank within the faith by becoming popular among the faithful as well as being known among common folks of other faiths. There's a special order of priests within the faith that deals mostly with undead and users of necromantic magic. They believe that they are gaining the upper hand on an old cult that has survived many attempts to distinguish it over the ages. Clerics of Selma have limited access to the druid spell list up to 4th level spells. Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Dolk. This goddess appears in the form of a woman wearing pure white robes, only her hands, feet, and eyes visible. She commonly opposes many of Lasar's actions and plans. Her most devoted faithful are those in the healing arts, as well as any who are sick or injured. Others that pray to her are those that want a vision or to be inspired. Said visions or inspirations come while a person sleeps in the form of dreams. Visions will usually be truthful at the time they are given, but the outcome may change in a good or bad way before they come to pass. Doke will try to give visions that seem positive without lying. If she can give a positive vision, she will give the person a positive message in some other... If she can't give a positive vision, she will try to give the person a positive message in some other way. Once, or occasionally twice a month, when the moon is full, the faithful have an outdoor ceremony where they pay tribute to Doke in whatever way they deem proper. It's also very peaceful and organized, despite common misgivings in other faiths about the full moon. During these outdoor ceremonies, the priests, nuns, and Templars, as well as lesser but able-bodied temple workers, provide security for the faithful. Almost any type of reverence is permitted as long as it does not violate any tenets of the faith or local laws. Some of the faithful come out as a family, some come alone, others travel from their home to hopefully learn more about their shared faith and beliefs. Regular services at Doke are usually held after the moon has risen, taking the forms of people quietly meditating, hoping for a sign from the goddess that their prayers were heard and that some good will come of it. The world is a mass of conflict during times when the sun dominates the sky above the moonlit night, brings peace, hope, and tranquility. The deity Doke tries to give her followers peaceful and quiet nights, despite knowing that sometimes bad, noisy things will happen at night. These usually pass quickly, returning the night to its peaceful time. The origin of life, according to those of Doke, life began at night on a clear full moon. Lit peaceful nights in an oasis pool located in the middle of an oasis and grew outward from there, spreading throughout the world. Saint Barvan of Dolks really liked dogs so much that he wished to be one with the dogs that he met in his travels. Over time, he learned how to shape change into a dog. With regular practice, he became the first werewolf. Sheikh Al-Abazan is believed to have been either a father or the first love of Dolk. Some say he's still wandering the desert in search of some item that he has wanted to give Dolk, but has been lost to the ages. Let's see. Social status of Dolk is really admired most by the lower parts of society because they'll heal you even if you can't pay with coin or whatever, or whether you're male or female. Many have paid with their share of their crops or by doing work at the mosque that the priest resides at. They're also admired by most women because it shows that a woman can attain high status. Some men in the upper parts of society have refused to be healed because Dolk is a woman. Followers of Selma and Guaidian are the most open about being an ally of Dolk, as well as many females who, for many reasons, are not open about allying with Dolk. Follower of Lissar among many males due to Dolk allowing females to rise to the ranks and become the second highest ranking person of the clergy at her mosques. It's a public religion. Populace as a whole has great appreciation for being because she's willing to heal anyone, rich, poor, male or female, human or non-human. Has a good relationship with the state due to willing to pay the most in taxes, and Imam of the faith refusing to take female leader of a mosque due to pressure from other imams refusing to deal with any female high priestesses. Relationship in other religions. It is a very good relationship with Selma and Guaidoan faiths, and a strained relationship with other faiths, particularly with Lissar, who Dolk openly opposes. Started among healers that wanted someone to care for them as well as they helped. The healers did most of the work at night instead of on hot sunny day. Created out of need for helping those that are not living a richer, privileged life. The youngest of all religions, Bashar, perhaps only a couple of 100 years old. The founding members, male healer and herbalist named Morkin, and a female named Sherazin. Some say Sherazin was Morkin's wife, others say she was his slave. Become more dedicated to giving more rights and privileges to female and poor people. Yes, that kind of religion. Unofficial crusades against Lysar and his followers. So far, none of the clergy has questioned or protested any action against the Tsar. Interesting. Schisms. There are a group of Templars called themselves hunters, seeking to eradicate lycanthropy of any kinds, along with Saint Barvan, who they still believe is still alive according to vague signs. Clergy dress in white robes. Women keep their hair under a burqa when out in public, but if they see someone sick or injured, regardless of who or what they are, the clergy will offer to heal them of their illness and injuries and do what they are able to do, even if being able to unanswer them before helping them, as well as not asking for payment for their aid. Many of them called mosques. Many were converted into mosques after they were sold or abandoned due to death or natural disaster. The clergy typically use their own funds, favors, and skills to do whatever work is needed to make acceptable mosques for dolk. What makes these mosques even more unique is that, unlike the others, they have more beds or cots for treating the injured or ill. Some of these rooms are open to the sky. Clergy of dolk usually plan for the next catastrophe and are usually first to respond when it happens. There are maps kept in the Grand Mosque of the two moons showing that they're inhabited so far unknown inhabitants. So, maps of the moon. As in the surface of the moons?
Yeah.
And if there are two moons, is a full moon when the main moon is full, when both moons are full, or either?
One is blue and one is more red.
All right.
It's considered a good sign when the blue moon is full, and a bad sign when the red moon is full.
Right. But the ceremonies to dolk are held both during full blue moons and full red moons, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Unlike the majority of their country's brethren, they feel that the poor and destitute deserve to be healed as much as the rich and privileged. They travel throughout the area they have settled in regularly, leaving a minimum at the local mosque for long periods. The clergy also make group trips out to known oases as well as the nearest known settlement, and some on longer trips, traveling to every known settlement as well as stopping to aid caravans needing aid. Poorest faith by amount of coinage available by virtue of not insisting on payment in coin for giving aid. They do not accumulate offers of owed favors. They do accumulate offers of owed favors from many. They help asking for favors and help building or repairing mosques, as well as free room and board for traveling clergy. Just as every faith in Bashar is based in the Grand Mosque in Habib, with the Imam of the faith. For the faithful, evening berthing is preferred, open to the night sky. If this is not possible, the room that the birth takes place in is darkened, lit only by candles, preferably with the members of the clergy present, if it can be arranged, as well as at least one midwife who takes care of the birthing process. In the event that anything goes wrong, midwives typically bring a lantern as well, and other materials needed as part of giving birth. So the room's dark, but if they need to be able to see in case things go sideways, they have backup plan. That's actually really smart. Initiation rituals always take place in the evening, out in the open desert, under a full moon, either the blue moon, Elon, never under the red moon, Orcris. With one being initiated is accompanied by family or loved ones, as well as priests or priestess, depending on the sex of the initiate. In the event that the initiate is an important personage, they will be accompanied by a group of clergy, including at least one Templar, as well as the high priest, highest higher-ranking priestess available, and at least two lower-ranking members of the clergy. The clergy will have the initiate remove most of their clothing and lay down on top of the sand dune to look up at the moon while the clergy recites a prayer to dolk until the initiate is completely bathed in the moon's light and dreaming, at which time, according to the clergy, the initiate has been blessed by dolk and is welcomed into the faith. Marriage parties may last most of the day for the faithful dolk. The actual ceremony takes place under the cover of night, preferably under a full Elothian moon, but it's acceptable to not wait until the moon is full before getting married, unlike other faiths of Bashar. Both the groom and the bride must agree to being wed. If they don't agree or someone interrupts the ceremony with a reason for them not to be wed, the ceremony is postponed either until both parties agree to be wed or the groom's family finds a bride who agrees to be wed to their son. In the event the ceremony is interrupted by someone who has reason for the ceremony not to take place, if the groom and the bride agree that the reason is valid one, then the ceremony is cancelled. If only one of the two agrees and they both agree to a settlement between the wedding party and the accuser along with priest or priestess meditating the agreement, the ceremony is either redone or cancelled. In the event that all three people can't agree on a mediation as well as agreeing that the accuser has a valid reason for the ceremony not to take place, the ceremony is cancelled, and the presiding clergy will try to console the remaining wedding party member. Death rituals. When a member of the faith dies, they are usually buried in a simple stone sarcophagus if they are lower class, or an innate one if they are upper class. Nearly every major settlement has tombs dug out in the ground that are used by every faith in the area. Smaller settlements usually make stone sarcophagi and bury them in the sand. These burials are usually performed at night, if possible, under the blue moon alone. In the event that a burial takes place under the red moon Orcus, then it usually would take a little longer, as it would want to take extra precautions to ensure death do not rise again. These precautions are things such as blessing the body, as well as sarcophagus in the area the body is buried in. Upper class burials may include such things as sealing a sarcophagus, making the sarcophagus out of rare and expensive materials, or having magical wards protecting sarcophagus. So here's a question. The death dealers take away dead bodies. Do the faithful of Dulk just not get taken away and cremated, or are the ashes buried, or do death dealers avoid them? And if they do get taken by death dealers, are their mortal souls in peril because they didn't follow their goddess's wishes?
Death dealers are for people that, for one reason or another, either aren't members of the faith, or for some other reason don't or can't be buried in the sarcophagus.
So they take the ones that don't have any priests to claim them in. Okay. So if you don't have a religious community to ensure your burials, you'll just get taken up by the death dealers, and that's it. Interesting. Faithful celebrate when a full Elonian in the sky, and again if there's more than one in a month. Usually the times are marked by family gatherings, sometimes including friends who may not be among the faithful. Larger families of faithful gather from long distances for these celebrations. There is also the expelling ritual, removing someone from the faith in many cases. Those that are expelled have been cursed with some form of lycanthropy. There are festivals for the summer solstice and fall equinox, as well as at the end of the year. Shrines scattered across the land in the settlements, as well as some oases. The pilgrimage. Some of the faithful make a yearly pilgrimage to Havib. Most, however, only make once a lifetime pilgrimage to Havib. Many of the faithful are healers. Related to healer, for those that are not, they were probably drawn to it quietly out of a desire to change the most common standards and outlook. Locally, men and women have an almost equal chance to rise within the ranks of the clergy. On a national scale, due to the pressures from the other faith, only men may become an imam or among these advisors. No special orders. Cleric, can automatically tell if someone is a lycanthrope or not. Interesting. Gwaiduon is the god of magic, lesser god due to being demoted by the other deities, even though magic is very prevalent. The other deities fear that he will become too powerful and use that power to change the mortal status quo in Bashar. He believes that anyone, male, female, rich, poor, should have the chance to learn magic. Anyone that prays to him wanting to learn magic will be tested by the god to see if they have the potential to learn magic. Those that pass the test, if they are educated, will probably become wizards or some other spellcasting class that prepares their magic. Those that are uneducated become sorcerers or some other spontaneous caster. This does not mean that only single class beings pay homage to this god, as many multi-class warriors and priests, even thieves, have picked up some magic skills. There have been few over time that have claimed to be a priest dedicated to this god, only to be shunned by many of the people they have encountered and passed the rest of their lives as a lonesome hermit, avoiding contact with others as much as possible, only being sought by those who want to learn more about magic. There are no known records of what kind of services or prayers this god reveres. He seems to be content with people thanking him for allowing them to learn some form of magic. The world was created out of a mixture of the 5 elements. earth, air, water, fire, and magic, as well as time and space. These things constantly intermixing creates everything we know in our lives. Other gods have done what they could to take power away from this god due to his feelings that with magic everyone could be equal, man, woman, non-humans, whatever your status. You could also be equal to the most powerful merchant or noble. The origin of life. All life is made up in part of magical energy. This energy is what makes all life part of the universe. It is believed by some that the god first manifested out of the desire of a beggar to be more than a beggar. Godwin's daughter is said to be walking the lands and is a sorcerer practicing magically openly, and many claim to have met her. Wow. Currently very low, except among men that practice magic, but overall is seen as a lower class faith. The most powerful allies is the followers of the goddess Dolk. After them is the most members of the lower class, because they see the faith as being a way to gain more power, status, and respect among the people of Bashir. Whereas most other faiths wish to maintain things the way they are. Enemies are any other faith beside Dolk. It's a public... Well, so the god Gwendolyn is tolerated existence because Lot cannot logically be denied, and it seems to be gathering more followers with each passing day. But I'm guessing they don't have a imam in the grand mosque, right? Oldest of the various faiths in Bashar, as most believe that the magic is what makes life as it is, possibly the world. Founding members a woman named Stepheth, who became a powerful sorceress and traveled the world. Has not changed since inception. Among his followers, there have been rumors fighting back against giving magic using beings like non-humans and women more rights. No schisms. Those that have claimed members of the clergy have been wearing multicolored robes with mystical symbols that seem to move. Sadly, these beings have been mocked and decried as being insane heretics. The rumors of a temple somewhere out in the desert. Wand, stave, and rod are considered sacred to Gwendolyn. Those claimed to clergy have tried to get more people to join the faith. They believe the god of magic should be a greater god, and the easiest way to accomplish it is by helping him gain more worshippers than the other gods. Most of the would-be clergy would start asking people they assumed were from different levels of society if they would like to learn magic. If being replied positively, they were told they needed to worship Gwaidian. And he would give them a way to be able to learn magic. Very loose up until recently, there's only been one member of the faith at a time, and the one only tried to recruit more worshippers. Supposedly based in a lost temple somewhere out in the desert. Infant is bathed in a pool of magically created water, then wrapped in a towel with specific runes from language of magic detailing the area the child was birthed in. If the initiate is a magic user, the ritual will begin with the priest or priestess asking the initiate to cast what they believe is their most powerful spell out in an open area with no known intelligent inhabitants in the area. If the initiate is not yet a magic user, then the priest or priestess then cast the spell at the beginning and end of the ritual. Casting a spell is meant to attract the attention of Gwaidian, so that he may bless the initiate and aid them in learning about magic. After the spell is cast at the beginning of the ritual, the priest-priestess asks the initiate to give some non-magical item that has some personal value to the initiate. The priest-priestess will then carry out an illusory spell on the item and seem to give it a magical aura, then offer back to the initiate, telling them to keep it with them at all times for the next 9 months. If the initiate is able to keep the item with them for the entire 9 months, they have learned enough about magic to be able to cast a spell. If the initiate is not able to keep the item with them for the entire 9-month period, for every day they don't have it with them, they must wait another month before being able to cast spells. In the event that the item is lost, the initiate must wait a total of 9 months from the time that the item is lost before going through the initiation ritual again. After the personal item is ensorcelled and accepted from the priest-priestess, the ritual is concluded by the same person who cast the spell at the beginning will cast another spell ending the ritual. If the marriage is between two magic users, then it begins with both of them casting spells at the same time that have the same unoccupied area followed by both parties exchanging 2 rods, staves, wands, any combination of these items is acceptable. Then the man makes an oath to the woman to be faithful to her, invoking Guardian's name in some way. After the man is finished, the woman takes an oath to be faithful to the man while also invoking Guardian's name within the oath. Each oath is particular to the person making it. In the event the ritual is performed by 2 beings, only one of which is a magic user, then the non-magic user is expected to bring a rod, staff, wand with them that they were able to use to cast a spell at the beginning and end of the rituals, as well as having another to properly perform the exchange part of the ritual. Besides this different, is the rest of the rituals the same? After the groom and bride say their individual oaths, both of them blessed by a priestess as well as the union. After the blessing, the bride and groom cast a spell with the item. If non-music user at the same time as the same unoccupied area, the casting spells concludes the ritual. As much of the body of the deceased as possible is preserved before a priestess is to be presented before a priest or priestess following by telling of the last known event that happened to the deceased was taking part in up to the point of their death, as told by family members or witnesses. After the tales are told, people will be asked if they know what the last wishes of the deceased. If the person tells the last wish, the priest or priestess is to do their best to ensure that it is carried out. If the person's asked do not know the last wish, the priest may ask questions about the deceased in order to be able to make suggestions based on the life of the deceased. And then once the survivors and the priest reach an agreement, it should be carried out as soon as possible to the best ability of the clergy. In most cases, the body remnants are incinerated by magical created fire, or disintegrated if you have enough powerful enough priest. Expulsion is difficult because the priest would need to be able to curse or ask Guardian to put a curse on the being as part of the expulsion. The curse would prevent the expelled being from able to use arcane magic along with any rod, staff, or wand until someone is able to lift the curse. So basically, if you get expelled, you have to get your magic taken away. The start of a new year is celebrated by the faithful by casting spells into open air or casting harmless spells at each other. Smaller gatherings celebrate the creation of a new magic item. According to the clergy, there are shrines in every settlement and many oases. Some of the followers have claimed to know about these shrines. Some of the followers have made pilgrimage to Aviv and have stopped to pray at some point in the city, claiming they had an urge to do it at the time. There has been an increased number of followers recently for some unknown reason. It may have to do with being 2 clergy at the same time instead of only 1. Clergy advance by learning as much as they are able about magic and magic items as they become more powerful and become a high priest, priestess. No special orders. The most powerful priests are multi-class clerics, arcane class. The god Enem looks to be in the best physical shape that any male human would want to be in. Watches any bet or challenge that is made that includes physical effort. If someone cheats in one of these contests or wins by cheating, there's a very good chance that this god will challenge the person that cheated to a contest that they cannot win to teach the person a lesson about fairness and cheating. Services to this god usually include a test of physical or mental power. Temples dedicated to this god are also used by members of other faiths to hold sporting events and contests that rely on more intelligence and planning. When they're used for such occasions, priestesses are the official judges and determine the winners, who may or may not always be those the spectators believe should be the winner. The world was made to be full of contests. Some can change your life, others are not as serious. Your life begins with a contest to see how long you will live, and your life on this world ends with a defeat to help you remain humble as you go to the next contest of your existence. Typically appears in the form of a physically fit human male wearing only a loincloth and sandals, regardless of the environment in which he appears. Life started with every race needing to be in good physical condition. Over time, many races began to get more lazy and slow down. There's a story that's been told many times, depending on the teller. A man was mortal at the beginning of, in very good physical condition when he was challenged by one of the gods. Which god and what challenge varies with every telling of the story. At the end of the story, a man was somehow won the challenge, and the god was so impressed that they made him a lesser god. There is a story of Saint Emen, a saint of Emen, a man named Karim, a huge man rumored to only be half human, and then different stories that differ depending on the teller. Probably feats of great strength and physical prowess, I'm guessing. Religion is most respected by merchants, who almost always seek out large guard for their businesses and good. Allies, Selma and Dolk are the most strident allies. Lycer also likes them because those in good shape can fight longer. Toman does not like him very much. Many of his followers died partly missing or broken limbs, which makes them unsuitable for use as undead servants. It's a public religion. Most of the populace like the faith because of its clergy, and followers are always in such physical good condition, as well as most followers are happy to help people get in better physical condition. Very good relationship with the state, as it usually gets more followers to become bodyguards and soldiers. Gets along very well with other religions, most of the time due to their strict adherence to a regular regimen despite almost any outside interference in their daily routine. Most tales of its origins tell about a man and a woman that went off to the desert seeking a perfect place to exercise. They were gone for quite some time, long enough that their associates believed they had either met a bad ending or had gone to some far-off place. One day, after being gone for a long time, the man and the woman returned, and everyone that remembered what they looked like before were shocked by seeing the seeming physical transformation of their returning friends, who were now in the best possible physical condition for their age. It was created out of desire to see that people did not become fat or lazy as they aged. Second oldest religion in the country. The most common belief among clergy and followers is it started with a small street boy who fell in love with the daughter of a rich merchant. The girl was flattered by the attention, but told the boy that she would not stay with him because he was not very strong or very healthy. So the boy started working as hard as he could every day, believing trying to eat better food. After about a year of working hard and eating better, the boy went to see the girl again. At first, the girl did not believe it was the same boy, but after talking with the young, muscular, healthy man before her, the girl realized it was the same boy, and the two young people had a long and a healthy life together. Changed over time and become more accepting of females and non-humans. None yet declared holy wars or schisms. Clergy, as well as followers, except women, typically wear light clothing regardless of the weather or time of year. And women, of course, must always cover up. There's one temple in every permanent settlement in Bishar. There's a set of weights in Habib that are rumored to be sacred to Enem. They're made out of some kind of unknown but very dense stone. They push physical activity and getting people to work hard, and believe that everyone will live longer if they're healthy. They do it by telling people not to sit around, but to be active, find something to do. If a person gets angry and physically threatened, the follower will do their best to beat them down and tell them it would win the fight if they were in better shape. How does the organization work? The organization works by using its followers' active ways to spread the dogma of the faith. As long as followers have basic understanding of the tenets, that's usually good enough for most clergy who are eager to clarify any misunderstandings. Like all major faiths of Mashir, the Iman of the religion is based in the city of Habib. If possible, at the time of the birth of a child... Sorry, I just have to keep an eye on the time. Okay, wait. I'm actually also not reading the comments section, which is probably a bad idea, but no one seems to be saying anything there, so we're good. Although we do have a couple people watching, so that's cool. I usually tell people to jump in the comments, but I'm also have a setup where I can't do the thing where I have, because otherwise it'll probably mess up Zoom, so I'm trying not to. I have to go back and forth. If possible, so birth rituals of the god Amen. If possible, at the time of the birth of the child, there'll be a priest and a priestess along with midwife present. If that's not possible, the clergy would prefer to have a priestess rather than a priest, to present along with at least one midwife. The more affluent the family, the more midwives and clergy will be present. After the baby is born and cleaned up by the midwife, is expected to present the child to the senior priestess that is present in the room. Priestess is not concerned with the racial type of the newborn child, they will only be concerned with the health of the child. Clergy will inspect the newborn child, determine if the child is healthy enough to live to the age of maturity. If the clergy decide the child will not live long based on the health, not the child's appearance, clergy will ask parents if it is possible whether or not they wish to keep the child. If the family decides they don't want to keep the child, the clergy will take the child to live in the nearest mosque until the child dies. If the child does not live long enough to reach maturity, the clergy of the mosque the child lives at will take responsibility for educating. Oh, if they do live long enough to reach maturity, they will take responsibility for educating the kid. If the child is male, or teaching a child that they need to know best serve their husbands and family if they're female. While educating a male child, the clergy will also try to find a child jobs so they can support themselves. In the event the child does not live to the age of maturity, the clergy will take care of the funeral. So if the kid's not healthy at time of birth, judged not to be healthy, they can be raised to the mosque away from the parents. In the case of children that are deemed to be healthy enough to live at the age of maturity, after newborn is cleaned up by the midwife, presented to the clergy, who determine the child is healthy. The child is presented to the parent or parents, who may choose to accept the child as part of the family or shun for any reason they choose. If the family shuns the child, or the mother is the only known parent and dies in childbirth, the clergy will take the child to the nearest mosque of men to be raised by the clergy there. Interesting. Rituals attest the potential follower. Initiation rituals test the potential follower physically and mentally, usually beginning with a test of strength, such as lifting a heavy stone or solving a riddle or puzzle. Being is given 3 chances to complete the task, or if they are unable to complete the task after trying 3 times in front of either 2 priests or a priest and a priestess, they are told to come back in a month and try again. If the potential follower passes both tests, they are welcomed into the faith and told when and where the next regular service or festival will be held. The ceremony for marriage is different if one of the couples is not of the faith. In the event that one of the betrothed is not of the faith, the one that's not of the faith must be in good physical condition for a member of the clergy to perform the ceremony, and then must show that they are in good physical condition to complete the ceremony. For the ceremony with one not of the faith but still in good physical condition, once the bride and groom are by the presiding clergy, the one not in the faith must perform a feat of strength in the presence of the presiding clergy as well as their betrothed and the family of the betrothed. All the aforementioned must be admitted to be impressed by the feat of strength, which does not need to be successful, just impressive. If not everyone is impressed, the feat can be attempted 2 more times and hopefully impressing everyone. If all the witnesses are not honestly impressed by this feat of strength, the ceremony is postponed at least 1 month for the one not of the faith to come up with another feat of strength that will be more impressive next time it is performed. The one of the not of the faith may try a total of 9 times to honestly impress the aforementioned. If they fail after 9 attempts, the presiding clergy may offer the one not of the faith to be initiated into the faith. If they become one of the faith, they are granted 9 more chances to impress their betrothed family and be married by the presiding clergy. If the offer is not accepted, then the ceremony will be delayed 1 year. For those couples that are both of the faith, the ceremony goes differently. Both meet in the presence of the presiding clergy, where the first the female does a feat of strength to impress the groom and his family, followed by the groom performing a feat of strength to impress the bride and her family. Afterward, the bride speaks an oath of loyalty to her future husband, followed by the husband speaking an oath to future wife. After they speak their oaths, presiding clergy asks for the blessing of men and the union and pronounces the couple to be married. Death rituals. For the death of one of those of the faith, their remains, whatever they may be, will be put in a casket, most likely made by sandshapers, looking plain or very ornate, depending on the station in life of the deceased, carried out into the desert or into the underground catacombs, if a nearby city has them, either by members of the deceased family or by porters hired by the family members or the clergy if they were of high station. The casket is either buried out in the sand or placed in the catacombs, followed by a member of the clergy placing a blessing on the spot the casket is placed in. The eviction ritual removes a being from the good graces of the faith. Afterwards, those of the faith will shun being, not even trying to get them to do something, or commenting on their physique if they're in good shape. So eviction is simple shunning, and you get cast out and aren't invited to exercise with everyone. So that's just, I'm sure it's just an interesting religious difference. Sorry. I have for those of you who watch the stream who don't know, I have a fish, his name is McVenner, and he's splashing water on my computer because he is being a brat. Yes, you are being a brat. Here. I'll give you these, will you stop it? Alright. This is the only stream where I ever end up stopping the stream to feed this fish because he's, being, petulant. Alright, every year in the dry season, those of the faith hold a sports competition where they compete against each other for a week's time. Every 4 years, those of the faith hold a grand contest wherein they compete against those of other faiths, mostly in friendly competition, As news of this grand competition spreads, more and more people try to make the trip to Bashar in time for it. This grand contest typically lasts 3 weeks. Oh, every 4 years, I see, they compete against members of other faiths in friendly competition. Shrines in every settlement and many oases in Bashir So every year in the... Oh, interesting. Many members of this faith typically make pilgrimages to visit every mosque and shrine in Yemen, at least once in their lives. And there's shrines in every settlement and in many oases. Most of the faith will try to recruit anyone they meet that is in good physical condition as well as fairly educated to join the faith. The clergymen advance within the faith by showing they are most fit physically and mentally. Any member of the clergy may challenge anyone in the clergy that is higher position they are. The limitations of the challenge are both must be in good health, and both must be free from obligation to the faith at the time the challenge is made. Finally, the challenge must be witnessed by a third member of the clergy that also meets the other limitations. No special orders. Priest of Emen. Priest of Emen get the benefit of the run feat free at first level. That's pretty cool. Oh, wow. Alright, let me check something here. So there's also Lissar and... Lissar, and then there's... Nishi? I just want to see. Toe men, because I have to go to work at some point. And okay, I think we can do the gods at least. They are really interesting. I'm guessing there are those who don't follow any. Well, here's a question. How many of those who do not follow any faith are there in Bashar?
There's enough that people know that they're out there, but there really isn't a whole lot compared to the ones that are members of a faith.
Okay. Good to know. Alright, interesting. Ooh, Lissar. This god likes to fight, watching fighting, and starting fights. His followers are the ones most likely to have confrontations with other deities' followers, particularly followers of Dulk, who opposes Lissar by saving those he wanted to die. Followers are typically always looking for fights, sometimes starting fights just in hopes of being noticed by Lissar. They're not all bullies, but many are, as well as many have a short temper. Another bad trait of many followers of Lissar is they do not like foreigners to Bashar. Lissar and or his followers are believed to have started many battles that have happened throughout the history of Bashar. Interesting. Many of Lissar's high priests and priestesses are fairly strong or tough, enough to take a beating if they need to, as well as being capable of dealing out not quite beating if they feel there is a need. Or the services to Lissar typically involve wrestling or fist fights. Many times it is the priests or monks dealing out the beatings to the faithful. The world is a place that rightfully should be controlled by the toughest, not necessarily the strongest or the smartest, just the ones that are hardest to beat down. That Lissar has no friends amongst the god of Bashar, always looking for reason to start a fight. Really hates Dulk, who has kept many from dying. Lissar wanted to die. Many races were brought to life and failed to be the master race. Once humans were brought into the world, it became obvious to all the gods that humans were meant to be the master race of the world, according to the fall of Lissar. It has been said that Lissar was one time a member of another race and hated it so much, matched only by his desire to be a human, that slowly morphed into a human by sheer force of willing it to be so. There have been tales that Lissar having a brother or sister, their name lost in the fog of time, giving the god more reason to be angry at their siblings would tease them about how they cannot do anything the correct way it should be done. Lissar is the most Um, most popular among rich and powerful, as they are the ones that send the lower class to fight for them and possibly die while doing it. Military and political leaders, perhaps some religious leaders that want to have some kind of physical show of force against another faith. Enemies, anyone of the Dolk faith, as well as those discriminate against the other races. Also, that's interesting. So, on the one hand, Lysar is a god who was born from his intensive desire to be human because humans are the best. On the other hand, his followers count anyone who discriminates against other races to be enemies. Huh.
I understand it's probably a typo.
Uh-huh. Interesting. It's mostly public, although thoughts of making it private. I know the kind of thing that is. Most of the general public have a dislike and distrust for some fear, and for some fear of members of the faith. Lysar's faith has an overall good relationship with the state, due to most of the upper rank of the military were devout members of the faith. The god of death and his followers like them for keeping them busy, while Dolk and her followers strive to disrupt any and all of his plans. Interesting. It is believed that they came from a young non-human that for some reason wanted to be human. Created out of the one's hatred for non-humans and attracted like-minded humans united in their desire to spread their hatred. One of the oldest faiths in Bashar. It is believed that it started by Lysar himself, along with a sibling whose name and all the details have been lost to time. They started attracting like-minded beings, followed by becoming leaders of the group and ascending. The only change that has happened is it seems that the faith is becoming more secretive. Not currently planning any holy wars, at least not they're admitting to. There is one that preferred to take action rather than just make threats, openly attack faithful of Dolk and other gods that opposed Lysar, the schism group, which probably the clergy manipulate to their benefit and then deny all knowledge of, because that's how these things work. Clergy keep their hair short, must learn to use as many weapons as they are able to learn, as well as some kind of unarmed combat, such as wrestling or other kind of martial art. For dress, the clergy usually wear leather armor along with robes of silk or some dark color. The temple's mosques dedicated to Lysar. Many mosques dedicated to Lysar seem to have been abandoned except for the one in the city of Avib, leaving only a few small shrines that are so far being maintained. The Sacred Eye is a club that the non-human version of Lysar used to beat his body to a more human-like form in his many attempts to permanently change his form into a human form. The faithful latter set out to show the non-humans that humans are superior as many ways as they're able to, because they honestly believe they are right and everyone needs to know. Those of the faith will take any chance that they see or hear, either physically or verbally, to show or tell how humans are superior to non-human races. In the event that a faithful Lysar is shown that they are not the superior to a non-human, the faithful will either attack the being that showed them or immediately leave the offensive site and try to forget the incident ever happened. How does the organization work? It works because it attracts humans that believe fear and intimidation are the best way to keep a group under control. As the clergy rise up in the rank, they become more feared and more intimidating. Like all faiths of Bashar, it is based in the city of Avib. A male member of the clergy must be present for the birth to be officially sanctioned by the faith. If it is not possible for some reason, the parents are expected to have the child examined by a male clergy member as soon as possible at the parents' expense. Female clergy member may also present at the birth. Her duty will be to help the birth and care for the mother to be. The most senior male clergy, if more than one are present, has the duty to examine the newborn child to ensure that they are human. If the child has any non-human traits or qualities, the priest will reject the child, followed by showing the child to the parents, who are expected to also reject the child for the reasons the priest has chosen to reject the child. If the parents do not voice their rejection of the child at the time, the priest has the authority to immediately expel the family from the faith. In most cases, the parents will also reject the child. In this case, the priest will immediately take the child to the nearest orphanage or other safe house that will accept the child and return to the mosque and record the birth as noting that the child was an abomination. If the child is declared to be human, the priest will present the child to the parents, ask what they have chosen for a name. Once the priest says the child's name, usually leave the mosque and record the birth and child's name. Leave for his mosque to record the birth and child's name. For those joining the faith, they must be human and able to give 3 reasons why they are superior to non-humans. These reasons must be not the same as someone else gave in the last 6 months, followed by an oath not to betray their brethren by telling a non-human they are better at something than the human initiate is. This brief ceremony must be witnessed by members of the clergy at the time it is performed. For this ceremony, both must be human and either already be of the faith or willing to join the faith immediately after the wedding ceremony is complete. For the ceremony for being one of the faith, first the bride swears an oath to her husband to not be friends with any non-humans, or to be unfaithful to her husband, and always obey her husband or any other male as long as she is not unfaithful. The bride will as long as any other male, okay, as long as she's not unfaithful, the bride will then proclaim her husband. The husband then swears he will not be unfaithful to his wife as long as they are married. The priest presiding over the ceremony will then declare the bride and groom to be married for a ceremony in which one of the two married is not of the faith. After the initial ceremony, the presiding priest will then ask the one not of the faith to recite 3 reasons humans are superior to non-humans, none of which can be the same as the potential wedded partner for whom is already in the faith. If they are able to give 3 non-matching reasons, this is followed by a presiding priest to proclaim the couple married. If the potential wedded partner not of the faith does not give 3 non-matching reasons, the priest will delay the ceremony for at least 1 month, if not more, due to things such as other conflicting ceremonies or holiday. Once they meet again, if not able to give 3 non-matching reasons, the potential wedding is called off by the priest because it is seen the potential couple is not compatible with the faith. When one of the faith dies, the body will be quickly entombed in a plain stone sarcophagus. In the event that they were an important person, the sarcophagus will be embellished with various symbols and ornamentation worthy of the position they held in life. The sarcophagus will then be carried to another site outside the settlement, where those of the faith of Lister entomb their dead with only humans. The eviction of someone formerly of the faith out of the faith is usually done with a group led by a priest. The priest points to an individual to the group while proclaiming that the individual has been evicted from the faith. The group then proceeds to physically assault the individual until told to stop by the priest. Every full moon is a reason for celebration for those of the faith of Lysar. A time to go out in the night and disrupt the celebration of Dolk, who celebrate the full moon nights. That's fun. The only known shrines are located in the city of Avib. Every one of the faiths is expected to make at least one pilgrimage trip to Avib. Those of the faith of Lysar are bringing more into the faith by telling them they seek to help humans reach their full potential, which is probably superior to other races. Once they have attracted a potential new initiate, they try to subvert their outlook on life that the new initiate has chosen to match their own outlook in order to draw them further into the faith that seems to closely match their own. The more devoted of the clergy are able to rise in status by being more demanding and boorish toward those of lower status and not of the faith, as well as a way to advance their own status within the ranks, as well as being the best combatant is another way to rise in power. No special orders within the faith. The clergy may learn needs to learn as many lessons. Cleric. So any cleric of Lysar has what was that? Gets magical and non-magical weapons, or weapon. Sorry, weapon. I'm guessing it would be simple and martial weapons rather than just simple and as proficiency, and knows some sort of unarmed combat. Nishi, the god that comes for those who are about to die, be it from wound, disease, poison, or whatever the cause, is the last being they see as the spark of life leaves their mortal body. He usually comes out of a portal that opens up into a place of dark shadow and darkness. He will walk up to the being with his hands outstretched to them. The being is expected to take his hand in theirs. As they take his hand, they will be brought into the portal. While they're being led to the portal, their life's major events will pop up alongside the being. These events will show as being as a bystander, able to see and hear everything said or done. While the events are being displayed, Nishi will not say anything or stop the displays. He will only say something after the being's witnesses their own death. At that point, Nishi will usually comment that your next journey begins now. Even though necromantic magic is forbidden, for those that do practice it, any material component used in the casting must be offered in doubles, as the god wants something in return for not taking the soul into the afterlife at the appointed time. For those that practice necromancy, besides the double cost of magic, they also earn the hatred of those forced to serve them. From the perspective of those forced to serve the necromancer, Nishi tells them that the time with the living is not over yet. Go back for a while. Those chosen are picked at random for no particular reason. Being sent back are angry and eager to go back to the company of the dead, where they know they belong. Many of those who practice necromancy in Bashar get the knowledge of it from the god of magic, but a few have managed to strike a deal with Nishi to use the souls of the dead for their own goals. The most common follower of Nishi are those that deal with the dead. Some priests may pay homage to him, usually during last rite festivals, but there are no commonly known devout priests of Nishi. Huh. Interesting. Well, that makes sense, I guess, if he's the last, the priest of the dead. I'm guessing the death dealers are probably on good terms with Nishi. So, when the cost of necromancy is doubled, is it doubled just in Bashar? Like within that area, or is it everywhere in the world?
Well, it's people that learned necromancy magic from someone in the shard.
Oh, so it's the particular rites that they use take twice as much material component because it's overseen by Nishi.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. According to Nishi, is a place full of beings that want something from you in exchange for something to you before you go to Nishi's realm, and some want to use you after you've entered the realm for your third stage of life. He has power due to everyone paying tribute to him. Gets tribute from the other gods, the rich, the poor, the powerful, and meek. He helps most of the dead from coming back to life unless someone makes a deal, usually for revenge. Other times it is to gain more power from learning from a dead master. Sometimes it's for lust for someone who died before willingly giving themselves to the person making the deal. What you know of life in Bashir and the rest of the world is actually the second of three lives. The first is as a dust devil, like a bit of dust floating on the wind, until your time to start. The second form arrives by a time of darkness, followed by the light, followed by another time of darkness, and the light beginning your third life. At the start of your second stage of life, you have recurring vivid dreams of your previous life stage. These fade over time, forgotten by many, except for the few that record these dreams. These usually become the well-known bard, scholar, teacher, historian, philosopher. The first stage of life typically is the shortest. Memories are not more than feelings, emotions. The second stage of life usually is the most active for beings. Memories of the second stage are the most revealing and vivid. The third stage of life is typically spent reflecting on the past two lives and things left unfinished, as well as good and bad things that happened, and what should have been done during the third stage is when the beings become undead as a way to try to finish some task or continue doing a task to an oath or promise, as well as being called back by some kind of necromancer for their own decisions. One of the stories is that Nishi has a daughter named Mushu with one of the female deities. Some say Selma, others say Dolk. So when you say the second life, so the second life is the mortal life, yeah?
Yeah, the
Birth to death.
second life is what people see as the most normal. You know, that's when you're an elf or a tiefling, you're
A human. Alright, so it's the mortal life, and then the other two stages are pre-birth and post-death.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Mushu acts as a saint for Nishi, an unholy/holy knight for him, depending on his actions. The social standing. It is mostly highly respected, except during times when people encounter undead and come to the realization that it is an undead creature or creatures, and then, of course, they curse Nishi's name, because that's how that... Okay. Lisar and his faithful like and support Nishi. The other faiths, at the very least, pay homage to Nishi, especially at times when someone they know is or has died. They also offer him tribute at times when they feel threatened by undead. The Nishi has few regular enemies except those that have lingering effects from encountering undead, as well as the deities who don't like evil and or undead. The faith is actually public and open, but rarely mentioned or revered, giving many non-natives the impression that it is secret. Most of the general populace only mentions it if when a friend or family member dies, then only to pay homage in hopes that the dead stay dead. Pretty much the same as with the populace, they pay respect until they have to send troops to fight undead. So that's the relationship with the state. Relationship with other religions, same as general publish, they pay basic homage until called to fight undead. Then they may curse the name Nishi or try to ask Nishi for help fighting undead and perhaps call them back to the lands of the dead. Some members of various clergy and their faithful have begun paying tribute to Nishi in hopes of reducing the chances of more undead being created or released. Came out of the need for someone to rule over death and undeath. Created because a bunch of people were sharing the deity to have a domain of death, since it was much a part of their life as birth or a wedding. It is believed to be the second or perhaps third after Selma and perhaps Gwaidian. Scholars debate about the second and third religion. Some scholars believe the founding members members were the deity Selma herself, and perhaps the god of magic as part of his creation. Not believed to have changed in any way. There are some calling for holy wars against Nishi and any of his followers, but have not been officially declared. No known schisms. It is believed that a priest or priestess of Nishi would be clothed in all black with a gray belt, or perhaps a gray with a black belt. Some say there is a mosque for Nishi in Habib. Others say the mosque is somewhere nearby outside of the city. There's a common belief among common people that somewhere in Habib there's some teeth that supposedly belong to either Nishi or a high priest of his. They set out hurting those who have moved on to the third and final stage of life and keeping them in that area of the multiverse unless one makes a deal with Nishi to gain some control over those in the final stage. Nishi does what he does because it is duty as a deity of death. His followers will be doing to help Nishi gain more followers. They travel the world searching for undead, those controlled or free-willed, and forcing them to move on to the land of the dead. The lower-level clergy regularly patrol the underground burial chambers in areas where individual sarcophagi are buried, watching for any signs of any undead lurking in the area. Mid-level clergy watch for signs of any cult involved with undeath. High-level clergy watch for any signs of intelligent, free-willed undead, as well as any new gods becoming involved in this world. It's believed that the faith based somewhere in or near the city of Habib, simply so that the faith does not stand out during their daily prayers. A priest or priestess should be present during every birth that they will give the newborn child a blessing. May you accomplish much before Nishi in the final stage of your existence. Before joining Nishi in the final stage of your existence. These clergy will not care what the child looks like or whether or not are male or female. In the event the child is stillborn or dies before the clergy leaves the birthplace, the clergy will comfort the birth mother and or the family members by telling them that the child was not ready to come in this stage of life and offer to take care of the newborn's body. While the god Nishi prefers those that have been touched by death, he will accept anyone that wants to help cleanse the world of undead and keep popping up. As part of the ritual, it has to be moonless night, preferably during an eclipse. For marriage, it's very simple. The bride swears an oath of loyalty and obedience to the groom, followed by the groom swearing an oath of loyalty to the bride, followed by a priest or priestess praying the couple meet Nishi together as one, then declaring the couple married. The death of one of the family, the faith, is typically time for those close emotionally to have a party celebrating the thought that the dead being has gone to the next stage of life and hopefully spend it in the presence of Nishi. Eviction from the faith ritual seems to be cursing those that are evicted with sudden death and not spending afterlife in the presence of Nishi. Those evicted, as far as many people claim, have died all relatively soon after the eviction has been completed. The only known festival at this is at the end of the year to celebrate being another year closer to being in the presence of Nishi in the third and final stage of life. There are no known shrines to Nishi, sometimes in places of great number of deaths from some cause. A temporary shrine may be erected for those who wish to pay homage for those that have died. Most followers of Nishi are nomadic in nature and have no particular place they wish to go in their lifetime. Clergy of Nishi don't usually try to recruit new followers unless they have a reason to want to join the faith. It is usually the followers that try to recruit new followers. Most senior members of the faith are not only the longest lived, they are the most experienced in dealing with death and the undead. Priest and priestess can identify undead as a spell-like ability at will. And then there's the god Toman. This god is the one that picks out those that will serve a necromancer and actively seek out those that would want to learn necromantic magic. He likes to pick souls and bodies of those that, in life, were most repelled by the thought of not going to the afterlife, instead being forced to serve some evil being by doing evil deeds. Most people have no real understanding of magic, much less any particular kind. They all have been told that necromancy is evil, as it uses those that should be dead to carry out so-called evil deeds. Most followers of Toman crave power and influence, are willing to use almost any means to get it. Some of those that practice prostitution also pay homage to Toman in hopes of making a lot of money or gaining power and influence using their wiles. The world is a place ripe for being ruled and dominated by someone with the power and knowledge to do it. Toman tries to corrupt beings with offers of power or influence and prestige. He will offer whatever he thinks would be the most appealing to that particular being. On the origins of life, the intelligent creatures able to learn magic are meant to rule over the other creatures. There is a story that Toman has done a job of initiate times, particularly when a being has a plan to gain great power only to have it fall apart and cost many lives. Toman is a dark saint, typically in the form of an attractive female who offers beings power and influence. She goes by the name Saishida. Very low social standing. Nishi is considered to be allied with Toman because the latter spends a pretty steady stream to his land of the dead. Also, Gwydion, because Toman helps encourage beings to learn about magic. Dolk very much does not like Toman because he kills those he fools. Does not try to hide their work, so very few ever speak of it. So it's public but not well known to those not native. The general populace does not like it, as it fears, most fears it is typically only spoken about in whispers and almost never to non-natives. The state dares not publicly condemn it, as it tends to expose those that seek more power than they should rightfully have, and typically eliminates them by their own folly. The other religions tolerate it because it is part of the natural order. Without it, one of the other orders replaced it to keep the multiverse balanced. Where did it come from? It came out of a need for its existence in the natural order to keep the multiverse in balance. Created to keep other religions in check, preventing them from becoming too powerful. Third or fourth oldest religion. Belief of heretical priests of Selma. Their names have been lost to time, not changed. There are some of the faithful that have expressed desire for jihad, but they have been quieted by the more level-headed, who explain that the faith is currently vastly outnumbered and the faith would not recover from the loss of the jihad. No schisms. Clergy typically wear a red robe with a blue sash. Followers will wear a red ribbon on their person, around their turban, or pinned to their robes. There are rumors of a mosque somewhere in or near Havib, but it officially not a state-sponsored faith. The state claims there is no mosque in or near Havib. There is a mummified left hand that supposedly belongs to the first high priest of the faith, and cursed and being kept in the high mosque in Havib. Supposedly, although no one knows for sure. They set out to change the laws and attitudes to favor what they believe is a better way for the favors those of the faith. They desire to have power and influence over all others currently inhabiting the world. By any means they are capable of doing, and have another do something for them. The clergy rise to the ranks by any means possible. Highest ranks are filled with beings that will kill anyone for any reason without much thought about any consequences. With only rumors to go on, it is believed... Wait, hang on. No, hang on. So, I screwed up that. I have to find where we were. And it has to load again. I'm sorry about that. I screwed up the technicalities. Nishi, here we go. So we got close. So Toman is the god of necromancy, but also just general consolidation of power and screwing over other people for more power. Yeah?
Yeah, he's basically the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no one, it's not illegal to follow Toman just officially necromancy. Because if no one on the state wants it to be illegal to follow Toman, because it kind of helps get a gauge on who's power hungry and dangerous.
Yeah.
Alright. Prefer to have a priest or priestess every birth of those of the faith. Unlike other faiths, they will celebrate if the child does not look like a normal child, or if the child is sickly, they will do what they can to ensure the child will live as long as possible. For those willing to join the faith, most likely seeking power or influence, and the ritual is pretty simple. In the presence of a priest or priestess that is aware of those taking part in the ritual, the initiate swears an oath that they will stay faithful to Toman, that either the initiate or attending clergy uses an athame to cut the ring finger of the initiate's left hand so that at least a single drop of blood falls into the chalice specifically blessed for the purpose. Once this has happened, the attending clergy will bind the wound and then cut the same on their left hand so that at least one or more drops of blood into the same chalice and the droplets mix. So index finger of both hands. Clergy then adds a bit of specially sanctioned wine to the chalice with the blood droplets, offers the chalice to the initiate, who's expected to take a drink, followed by the attending clergy. Taking a drink, followed by the attending clergy, welcoming the initiate into the faith, completing the ritual. You have to drink, pour your own blood out, and drink with the clergy, and that's it. The marriage ritual can be done anywhere between a willing bride and groom and an attending priest or priestess. The bride swears an oath of loyalty and obedience to first Toman, and then her husband, followed by the groom swearing an oath of loyalty to Toman, and then his bride. After these oaths are made, the attending clergy uses their athame. I'm guessing that's some sort of weapon. The athame. Here, I've never heard of it, but
That's a knife.
Okay. Oh, so it is. SMA is a ceremonial blade, done with a black handle. Magical tool among several ceremonial magical traditions. I did not know that. I learned something new today. Other than, all about Bashar and all its gods and stuff. The attending clergy cuts the groom right arm, just a bit above the wrist, and cuts the bride's left arm, just a bit above the wrist, then presses the two cuts together so that the blood can easily mingle. As the bride and groom hold their cuts together, the attending clergy binds the two arms together with a bandage wrap. This wrap should be tighter and thicker than simple wound binding. Bandages is supposed to stay together for as many days as possible, regardless of anything the bride and groom has planned or may be required to do. So they get tied together. And then have to stay there as long as possible. In the event one of the faithful dies, once a priest or priestess is summoned to attend the deceased, typically one of the first things the attending clergy will do after offering token condolences to the next of kin and family members, they will ask permission to prepare the deceased to serve Toman in the afterlife. The clergy will not give any specific details about this service. Assuming the clergy is given permission, the body will be mummified and buried in a specially made sarcophagus in a specially dedicated area that at some point the deceased will be forced into service while in a state of unlife to a member of the clergy or some being that has paid the price for the services of these undead. In the event the attending clergy is not granted permission to prepare the deceased for service Toman, the body is buried in a plain sarcophagus in another particular area. This area's location is commonly sold for a price to beings of other faiths who wish for the services of the undead. Victual removes a being from the faith. Most of the time, a being is forcibly removed from the faith. With the ritual, they usually end up dead by the next full moon. And before the next full moon, the being will probably end up as an undead servant to the clergy that removed them from the faith. Festival on each full moon of Orcus, which is the second red moon, and at the end of the year. There are shrines in some remote, hard-to-reach areas of Bashar. Those of the faith are expected to make at least one pilgrimage in the mosque, to the mosque in the catacombs of Avib. Most of the clergy only try to recruit beings. Mostly only the clergy try to recruit beings to join the faith. These potential recruits tend to be from the merchant or noble classes, and those that wish to become those classes. Typically, those that have the most power, influence, as well as the most number and order of power, undead servants rise to the top level of the faith. No special orders. These clergy may choose to heal wounds of afflictions or cause the same wounds and afflictions. They can cast inflict wounds and not just heal wounds. Okay. Ooh. Sorry. I thank you for coming on to, like, do the read-through and answer questions and stuff. Sorry.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. I have to... Oh, we have, like, a lot of people viewing. No one in the chat, but a lot of people watching, which is pretty cool. I have to go to work, so we're gonna end the stream here. I guess we could do one more next Monday, maybe?
Sure.
Yeah. A wrap-up and a thing. And then, alright. And then, yeah, we'll talk about some other stuff. Have some fun discussion. Yeah, next Monday, same time, same place.
Sure.
Thank you for coming on. And hang on, let me end the Zoom meeting. Let's see. Alright, ready? Here we go. I'm gonna... do that. I'm gonna kick you out, okay? Bye. Boom. Okay. Alright. I'm gonna end this now. The only problem is that I won't be able to show up on the screen anymore, so you're only gonna hear me. Ready? Yeah, the way Twitch works is, which with Discord, is that if you end the Zoom meeting, you can't... There's a whole thing. I can't use the camera for OBS and for Twitch, and for Zoom at the same time, so that's a thing. But yeah, thanks for watching, for those of you who did, and I appreciate that. And we'll do the last thing next Monday, and then if anyone else wants to do, like, I figure I could just, hang on, can you still hear me? That's an important question. Yes, I think so. Actually, there is one way to test this. Give me a minute. Actually, there is one way. Yep, I can. And you could hear me. Okay, good. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Yeah, I'm gonna make Mondays just a thing. I'll invite other guests on for later Mondays and stuff like that. I think that'd be really cool. Alright. I have to go to work. Bye, everyone. Let me just...